Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of Select Screen here on YouTube.com. I want to thank you all again very, very much for watching tonight's episode, or today's episode, which depends on where you're actually listening to the podcast or the recording, per se, on YouTube.com. Thank you very much again for taking a listen to this edition of Select Screen, because this is a very special one that I wanted to cover over. Because we are going to be talking with John, aka Gamester81, who has a couple of websites and a couple of hobbies, which we will, of course, cover over those during the recording. And it's been probably a while since I did the last recording for the episode, and I really feel like I'm kind of a little out of it since I've been doing the other show which I've been doing lately, which is Life of a Game Seller, and I do thank you guys very much for, if you're sharing it, I mean, you're awesome for doing that, and I just wanted to take the time to sit down and just, thank you guys so much for actually watching some of the other videos while I try to assemble people together to try to do these interviews, because this is one small series that I'm doing, and I think that, it takes a while to schedule these interviews, because I know a lot of people have a life that they need to attend to, and they usually don't have a lot of time to focus online, because again, this is still a hobby, and this is something that I want to enjoy and to not necessarily churn episode after episode out for these recordings, whereas the Life of a Game Seller is more like a, I guess you could say like a video vlog series, web vlog type of little update as to what's going on with the store, and also to get people on camera to actually just, say hi and show off their transactions, because for the most part, they really appreciate the store, and I really appreciate them for actually coming out to say hi to me, or just come buy something that I usually sell. So, one of the things that I am going to try to do here in the next couple of weeks is try to get some more names together. But I want to know from you guys that are listening to this right now, if you have any suggestions, again, for any channels that you feel is underrated, that needs any sort of exposure to, get more views, to generate traffic over to your channel, to show that, you make good videos or whatever, I am more than willing to check out your content, and also to probably put you on for one of the next couple of episodes or whatever. So I would definitely like to see any more, channel ideas come up in the comments section. So if you have any ideas, just post down below. And also, if you guys haven't done so, please check out Chicken Wings' Facebook page. That's my little page where I post up any sort of updates on YouTube. And just check over there. It's on the description part of the video. And you're more than welcome to check up there to see any new updates that come out of the woodworks. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch on over to the transition right now, and we're going to go ahead and get over to John's interview, so we will see you guys back in just 1 second.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
Alright, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the interview. A lot of you know as this gentleman who plays as the Incredible Hulk from the Avengers, Mr. Lou Ferrigno, or John, aka Gamester81. What's up, man?
What's up, Kevin? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's not a problem. I know that it took us a while to get to this interview, because I know that you've been very, very busy doing a lot of work that's outside of your house. I don't think a lot of people know what it is you do.
Well, I do a couple things, a number of things, and I apologize for the delay. I appreciate your patience.
It's not a problem, man.
But yeah, so I have a day job. I'm a field marketing manager. I do a lot of traveling for a franchise and all over the country, help open stores and And that's been a lot of my plate recently because we're opening quite a few stores, and it's been busy. So doing that, and plus, hiring 2 more people, so doing interviewing for that, it's crazy, a lot of work. But on the side of that, I think most people probably know me from my show, Gamester81. I'm on YouTube. I have a website, Gamester81.com. I'm a big Star Wars fan, too. Really excited for the new Star Wars movie. So I have a Star Wars channel as well. It's just Star Wars Nut 77, and that's been around. I actually started that before I started Gamester81, and that's just a really fun channel. And what else? I manage, put together a gaming convention here in the Phoenix area called Game On Expo. 3 business partners and I did our first show this past August, this year, and it went really well. We had over 4,000 people show up, and it was a great time. We're already starting to plan year 2. And I'm a part of Colecovision Games, which I've been with them for about over a year, and our business model is kind of unique. We produce games for old consoles like the Super Nintendo NES and Atari, Colecovision, etc. We're starting to port those same games that we create to modern platforms as well. So we just got like an Xbox One dev kit. We have a Wii U one. We're going to release for Steam, working on a PS4. So been busy, man, to say the least. Plus, I have a family, first and foremost. So,
which I think a lot of people that are listening to this right now do agree that having a hobby and a family is very hard to juggle, especially when you have to have time and money put into the family before your hobby. Now,
no, absolutely.
Has there ever been like any sort of situation like you brought up earlier about the whole Game On Expo? Like, has there been so many conflicts at one point where you had to cancel like some kind of trip up somewhere to basically say go to like a kid's baseball game or anything like that?
Fortunately, knock on wood, not to this point. Families first, of course. My kids are young; they're only 2, so they don't have any baseball practice yet. But first and foremost is a family, of course, and then probably following that would be my day job. So I would never cancel or push things away from because that's what pays the bills, and so after that would probably fall into just my hobby, like you said, man. Just do this for fun, and I usually film and edit and play games when my boys go down around 7:30 or so, and then I usually go to bed around midnight or so. So I have a good chunk of time by myself for sure.
Which is always good because, again, it's always good to have a hobby. And I think there's this big myth about how if you're popular on YouTube that you basically can quit your day job and just do like videos all the time. Now, could you debunk this myth for everybody? Because I don't think that it's kind of like...
I can't speak on behalf of everyone, of course. But, from myself personally, I certainly am not making enough money on YouTube, nor would I... Even if I was, theoretically, I would still never quit my day job because, it's just, YouTube is one of those things they can take away from you anytime. You can get, I've heard of people, Google saying, sorry, you've posted this video, whatever, and we're going to stop paying you. So I would never, but no, regardless, I'm not even making close to what I would need to make financially to quit my day job. And it's a hobby, I'd love to do it full time, don't get me wrong, but at this point, it's not viable. And I've been doing it since 2008, so I don't think I'll ever get to that point, to be honest with you, which is fine. So I just do it for fun.
Yeah, it was like kind of like how it was with me back in 2008 because I did interviews for Abridged series creators, and it was mostly like up and coming like people that didn't have many views on their channels, and to get them interviewed to where they would at least generate some bit of traffic over to their channel is, to me, like a great feeling because I like to see them at least get some attention on their content. Now,
sure.
When with your website for Gamester81.com, you've basically been really pushing out, like, showing off people's content that they have, like, basically made over the past month. And I think it's good that there are people that are out there in the day and age where YouTube doesn't really have much in means of social networking, that your website and Facebook page is really getting that content out there. Now,
for sure. Thank you, man. I'm glad you noticed that. My website is a community website, man. So I've got, 20 or 30 different people up there. Varies on subscriber count. That doesn't really matter to me. I just want someone who's passionate about their show, and it's like you said, man, getting the word out there. for sure.
Yeah, and it's just, I really do feel that there needs to be more of that, but I think that, I don't know, like, after 2012, I think it's just gotten so much harder for, like, new content creators to get the word out about their content, because most of the time there's people that are just too busy, or the fact that it's just, there's so much more fluctuation of content that gets posted up online, and I think it's just a lot harder nowadays.
It's very much so, and I don't know if you've noticed, but yeah, pretty much since 2012, YouTube's changed their analytics, so, you know, if you do like a search for a game, they're going to really promote the big boys on YouTube, right? Where, you know, the smaller guys and smaller fish kind of get, to be honest with you, kind of get screwed from YouTube, because it's harder to find those videos, and it's really a shame. Like when you started, you know, you could just, you know, it certainly wasn't the first by all means, but it was certainly earlier on, and it was much easier to start a channel, and now it's much more difficult. Not to say it's impossible, because there's still a lot of people who grow their channels very, very quickly, but it's much more challenging.
Yeah, I think that if more people do come together and actually have these Facebook groups, I know there's one for the XS Gaming Podcast Facebook page, which I think Alexander's doing a really fantastic job managing that and allowing like smaller guys to actually showcase off their work, and I think a lot more people at least should be able to check that out and also promote like any other groups that are helping other little guys out.
Absolutely, yeah. On my website too, on my forums, if people go on there's actually a section specifically for those who want to share their channel or recommend other channels. You know, it's kind of a means, and it's pretty active, so that's a good way to do it too. But yeah, it's I think it's nice to have these outlets for sure.
All right. Well, since we're on the topic of YouTube, I do want to talk about like how it was you got your start, because I know that you have like a lot more different video content than what you start off with for like videos just showing off different obscure video game consoles. Like, what was the real inspiration that made you want to do that? Was there a specific person on YouTube that made you want to start making videos per se, or was it just you wanted to show off these consoles because it was part of your passion?
Well, I think, you know, part of passion for sure. You know, I've a pretty significant large collection of consoles, and there wasn't much information about these consoles on interwebs back in the day. So, you know, I got a camera for my wedding as a gift back in 2009 actually, and just said, hey, I'll just start posting videos. I had no experience doing videos, no editing experience, no nothing. So if you watch some of my earlier videos, I kind of cringe going back to the day and watching my earlier stuff, but you know, I just wanted to let people know about it and share it and inform people about it. I still do system reviews. I don't do as many because there's only X amount of systems I can review. I might end up going back to some of the earlier ones and redo some of them, but you know, I'm just kind of, obviously retro is my focus. I love retro games. I really enjoy modern games too, but I think my heart definitely goes towards the retro.
And speaking of retro, you also recently, by the time of this recording, you had uploaded your top 10 favorite Colecovision games. And said that it was like your favorite video game console out of like a lot of the like 1980s systems that were out.
Yeah.
One thing I would be curious about is that if it didn't get affected by the video game crash, do you think that maybe there would have been like a Colecovision 2 or some kind of other variation of the Colecovision?
Well, it's tough to say. You know, Coleco did produce the Atom, which was essentially kind of a follow-up to the Atom computer, that is, to the Colecovision, and it failed. It was a weird, I don't know if you've ever played an Atom computer or not. It's a really weird setup. It's a very old, you know, one of those dot matrix printers pretty much, and it's got the console itself, but the power switch is on the printer, which is weird. And if you power up, let's see, it's if you turn on the system and you put in a game, or it's like something like if you have a game on and it uses cassette tapes for games, and if you have the cassette tape in there and you power it on, it's going to delete all the data out the cassette, which was a huge flaw.
Oh wow!
So they actually, that was kind of the Coleco killer, so to speak, and they just financially weren't viable after that because they put so much money and effort into the Atom, and it just killed them. And coincidentally, it's kind of funny, the reason they called it the Atom, in case you're curious, is because Apple was the biggest competitor at the time with the Apple IIc and stuff, and they wanted to, the Adam takes a bite of the apple, so it's kind of a play on words there. But anyway, if it was to be successful after the video game crash, I don't know. But I certainly don't think if there was a video game crash, that Nintendo would be as successful, because Nintendo came in the right time, where and they market it correctly, And not to say that Nintendo NES wouldn't have been successful if there was no crash. I'm not saying that, but it probably wouldn't have been as successful because I think there would be probably other consoles still around at that time, playing a big part of it. So
yeah, and I think Vectrix would have actually probably survived too if it didn't come so late in right before the video game crash did.
That's a great console, man. So unique. I love it.
And it's a shame, too, because at my store, I've got, Berserk, and then there's, one of the other carts. Spike. And a lot of people look in the showcase, and they see those two games, and they wonder, it's what are these from? And it's, the Vectrix, and they have no clue what I'm talking about. And I always love to explain the system, because it's a very interesting concept, because I think it was, HD graphics before HD graphics were ever made.
Right.
So it was
vector
very
graphics.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a very cool system and very ahead of its time for sure.
So, yeah, there's a lot of systems that I really felt could have survived the video game market crash, but there's no telling what would have happened if that never even happened.
That's true.
Alright, so bouncing back and forth over to various different topics, you brought up CollectorVision and how you develop games for, various older systems. The time process and thought that goes into these games, I assume is, very, very time-consuming. Is there been, at a point where there's been, maybe one of the newer games that you're coming out with, I can't remember one of them right now, but I assume that it's a lot of weeks and maybe months into the games.
It is. I mean, when you're programming, because it's interesting because we're programming similar games, pretty much the same game to two different modern games, consoles, on Unity, which is a engine a lot of modern developers will use, because Unity is kind of cool because you can actually port it to anywhere from iOS to your phone to Steam to Xbox Live to whatever, right? So it's very universal. You don't really have to worry about limitations. When you're talking about developing the same game, on NES, for example, it's much more challenging because you have many more limitations. How many sprites you can have on screen, how many color palettes. I'm not a programmer, fortunately, but we have very talented programmers who are on our team, and just working with them and is understanding the limitations is unbelievable. And then you just have we actually purchased a cartridge shell mold with a group of people in China, actually, which is kind of interesting. So that way we can produce our own shells for cartridges. We didn't want to recycle old Nintendo games, for example, and take those off, the shelves, even if they were really crappy sports titles or whatever, because that's still history, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the nice thing about having our own shells is we can do different colors, we can do transparents, that's pretty unique, and but it's a big investment too, and it's definitely niche. I think even with the NES, even as popular as it is, it's much more niche than, let's say, a game that we can release on Xbox Live digitally, and the overhead's much more less, and it reaches a lot more people. So yeah, it's a passionate love for us, for sure. We're not making much money on doing this. It's very time consuming. We've been working on a game, City Hunter, for probably well over a year now, to give you an example how long it takes. Just a lot of bugging, and you got to test games for bugs. Nice thing about modern games, if there's a bug, you can patch it, no problem. Once it's out, if you put a game onto a ROM and you burn it onto a cart, there's not really anywhere to wait to fix that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's there. So you have to definitely play it. You got to check all parts and points of every screen, make sure there's no glitches. It's fun, it's rewarding, but it's a lot of work.
One of the other games I definitely wanted to talk to you about is that you had shown off some gameplay footage for Tiny Knight, and I know that was originally supposed to be as one of the launch titles for the Retro VGS, which I would want to get into that question here in a little bit.
Sure.
Is there any plans to just release Tiny Knight as its own standalone cart, or has that been put on the back burner?
Yeah, we as of now, as we're talking, things may change, but right now we do plan on releasing it for like the Super Nintendo, for example. We'd love to release it for modern consoles as well, but I understand, with the Retro VGS, it certainly got off to a bad start. I think they certainly marketed. They kind of made some mistakes, to be frank with you, as far as how they kind of went about things, as far as the price point up. To be honest, I was never part of any decisions as far as how much it was going to cost or anything like that. I'm not part of that team to decide that. But having said that, I think it's kind of helped them in the long run, because they had to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and kind of see what, let's hear the feedback, constructive criticism from the fans. Mm-hmm. As of now, it's going to be much lower in price. I believe under a $200 price point, maybe even 150 or so. They're going to have a playable demo of it. They're going to change the name. They've got some potential, and I'm not at liberty to say anything at this point, but they may have some potential backing from a major company for it. So I think we're not giving up. Certainly as a publisher for the Retro VGS or the new system coming out, we're not giving up on it. So I think there's definitely a market for it, as long as it's done, correctly, of course. So Tiny Knight still plans on being a packing game for that, as far as like when it's sold. But we might make it more unique. We might add some extra levels that may not be available for the Super Nintendo port or the modern. So it'll be kind of exclusive to a point. But for those who want to play Tiny Knight, they can definitely do it on other consoles as well. Just maybe a little different variation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny that with the Retro VGS, the concept behind it is very interesting, but I think what threw a lot of people off was the fact that they were comparing the shells and the controllers to a lot of other different video game consoles mm-hmm. that have already been out. And the other big controversy that I think everybody was pointing out also was the fact that there was no prototype already out.
Right.
So do you think that if they had a proper working prototype for the system out by now to let developers start making games for the system, do you think that would have actually softened the blow on the controversy for the system?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no matter what, look, I've been doing this for a while now, and I realize that you're not going to please everyone. You're going to get haters no matter what. Mm-hmm. So you can come up with the best system ever, and people are going to still complain about it. Some people will. But I definitely think it would have softened the blow, like you said, and I know that's what they're aiming to do, is come out with a working prototype, console that people see and say, hey, this is what you get. And I think, $400, whatever they were charging, is just too much for a new console that not many people are aware of. But I think if it was priced 150, maybe 200, and was a quality machine that could, had a lot of good launch titles and upcoming games for it, I think it could do well.
Yeah, and especially with any new system that comes out, at least needs to have new software that hasn't been released on any other system, like Pierre Solar or
right.
Pierre Solar, however you pronounce the title, or any any title, even what was the other one? Shovel Knight was the other one that was rumored to be put on the system. So I think that if it would have had more original content for it, then I think that maybe it would have had a lot more people backing it. But it's just no prototype, and the fact that there was a lot of games that are already out on other consoles.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so moving away from that little controversial topic, your passion for Star Wars. I know we talked, or you mentioned this earlier. You said in your in one of your previous videos that if you had to pick Star Wars over video games, that you would pick Star Wars any day of the week, considering it's your all-time favorite type of thing out there. Has there been any pieces in your collection that you would consider to be one of your favorites that is Star Wars related?
I have a stand-up 1983 Star Wars Atari arcade machine, and I've got it modded to play Empire Strikes Back as well, so you can switch between two of the games. So that's kind of, I guess, Star Wars and video game related, so that's probably why I like it so much. But it's a really cool piece of my collection, and probably one of my favorite items I have.
Oh, nice. And is there any like vintage 1980s like Star Wars figures or any play sets that you still have, some with the boxes or packages that people might think is cool?
Yeah, I have a couple sealed, unopened 12 back figures from the original 1978 line, like C-3PO. I have Yak Face. I don't have him sealed, but Yak Face, for those who don't know, he's like one of the rarest figures that came out. He was never released in the States. He was released in Canada and Europe. He kind of looks like Joe the Camel. He was an alien in Return of the Jedi in Jabba's palace. So I have him. I've got a 12-inch prototype Grito figure. So it was a figure that Kenner would have released as a prototype, and it's really cool because he's actually, it's a one-of-a-kind. He's actually made out of, like, clay.
Oh, wow.
So an employee would have, like, built him, and then they would have modeled him after the actual 12-inch figure that was never released. So that's pretty unique. Got a couple other prototype figures as well, like 3 3/4-inch figures. They're kind of cool because they're all colored differently. Like you could be tan color or peach or kind of a random color assortment. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, Star Wars it's fun to collect. I really enjoy the movies, and my boys are too. So I'm getting them into Star Wars too, which is kind of funny. So I'll come home from work and they're like, the first thing they ask for is to watch Star Wars, like the Clone Wars, or it's pretty funny. So they know all the names of the characters. It's so funny.
Oh, that is awesome.
Even like Kylo Ren, he's like Kylo Ren, and so they haven't seen any of the movies yet. I think they're probably too young to see it, but the cartoons I'll definitely have introduced them to cartoons.
Now, when you brought up Clone Wars, that were you talking about the Gwyneth Tennikowski, or it's hard to pronounce the guy's name, but it's the one that did Dexter's Lab. Are you talking about that one or the new 3D one?
The new 3D one, yeah. But I know what you're talking about. That's a really cool one too. That was like a mini series that they did on Cartoon Network a while back. Like I think 10-minute segments, and I've got the DVD that has them all together, which is sweet. And that's a great, really cool animated show for sure. But no, I'm referring to like the one that was also on Cartoon Network, the 3D one, the CGI or CG one, yeah.
Yeah, that one went for my gosh, like maybe 5 seasons or whatever it was.
5 or 6. The last season was Netflix only, and then they finally released it on Blu-ray and DVD. So now you have Star Wars Rebels, which is on Disney XD. That's actually a really good show too, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it takes place a little bit before A New Hope, after Episode 3. So a lot more characters like Darth Vader's in there, and Lando Calrissian showed up, and some other characters, C-3PO, R2-D2, characters that people would be familiar with the original trilogy. So.
Yeah, I think it's very nice that there is like new content that is coming out even after the prequels, which I think a lot of people have bashed to death, like repeatedly now, to the point where it's like it's literally no longer a dead horse. It's like just the exoskeleton of a dead horse.
Right.
So, when you want to show, like in the future, like you want to show these movies to your sons, is there, like, a certain way that you're going to show them? Like, is it going to be the prequels first, or is it going to be, like, the original 3 and then the prequels afterwards?
I'll probably show them. It's a good question. I've kind of debated back and forth whether I should show them the original 3 and then the prequels later, because that's kind of how I was introduced to it. But, I'm kind of leaning towards just showing them Episode 1 and kind of work my way up. I'm not a huge hater on the prequels. I know, like you said, a lot of people hate it. I don't mind them so much. I mean, I think of the 3, I think Attack of My Clones is my least favorite, because I think a lot of the cheesy love scenes were the one-liners, and just really, really poorly written in some parts of that movie. Although, having said that, the Yoda scene, the battle duel scene was really cool. There's some really cool scenes in that movie. I'm not a huge fan of Jar Jar, but I'm a super hater of him either. I think I love Darth Maul. He's one of my favorite, actually, Star Wars characters out there. I think he's a really cool character. He only has like a few lines, but he doesn't really need to say much because he's so badass,
Oh, yeah.
So, I think if you talk to someone who grew up like around my age in 30s, 40s, who've seen, even late 20s, who've seen the original movies in theaters, or even seen the original movies, the original trilogy, and then watched, there was that big lull, and then watched the prequels, I think if you talk to most of them, a obviously lean more towards the original series. But if you talk to someone who was a little bit younger and who watched the prequels, the first, I think they have very fond memories. I think most of them will have good memories of watching the prequels and then the later on movies. So I think a lot of it's just nostalgia, to be honest with you. And the hype of Episode 1 was so much. And I'm really excited for Episode 7, but part of me is concerned too because it's really getting hyped up. And I think it's almost impossible expectations to meet with some of these people's expectations.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that J.J. Abrams actually came out with like a separate video after, I think it was either the first or the second trailer, and really started to showcase off the different type of scenes and all these little like props that were built, and shown that it's not gonna be all CG like the prequels were. And I think that going back to how the original 3 were originally made before later on he decided in 97 to start putting in special effects. And I think that a lot of movies have really lost that type of magic or that type of touch to make it seem like it's a more authentic movie rather than just like a computer generated background with like CG characters everywhere.
Right.
Now, do you think like a lot more movies need to implement that more, or do you think that it's a bit too cost cutting and all this other stuff?
As far as not using as much CGI or what? It depends on the movie. You know, I think certainly with the prequels, I think George Lucas used too much CGI. You know, and even if you look at the special editions where he's went back and redid the original movies, like there's no need for the Jabba scene in The New Hope. You know, and that's kind of ridiculous. So I think he took it over. So I like the fact that J.J. Abrams is going back to kind of the unique, the original style, green screen, kind of going to the model sets. I think that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, and it's very, very nice that they're doing a lot more of that for this, and whoever is going to be the next director for, like, the second movie that's going to be coming out, I think it was, like, 2018 or whenever it was scheduled.
Right.
So,
every year there's a new movie coming out, dude. I mean, Star Wars Rogue Squadron or Rogue League or something like that, and then there's going to be like a Han Solo break off. They're going to do like the main story, and they're going to do like side stories like Han Solo and Boba Fett and Yoda, and it's going to be like Disney's going to do what to Star Wars like they've done to Marvel. And how many Marvel movies do we see now?
Way too many.
Way too many, exactly. So I'm kind of concerned about that, but we'll see what happens.
It just usually depends, because I remember when, oh my god, it was like episode 2 when that one came out, that I remember hearing the rumors about Yoda getting his own special movie that they were going to be coming out with, but they never got around to it because I think it was just George Lucas got probably burnt out from making like both episode 1 and 2, and then he was scripting for 3. So it's awesome to see that they are going to be doing these different type of movies, but yeah, like you said, it's probably going to be maybe oversaturation, which I hope it's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I know at one point Lucas had some scripts written for a live-action TV series too, but it was just so cost prohibitive to what he wanted to do, you know, as far as doing like an hour-long, 45-minute show. But I wonder if Disney would ever take the reins and do those.
It's only possible unless they try to pull off another sequel to, like, let's say, Star Wars Holiday Special. I mean, we are technically in the holiday season, so there's no telling.
It's true.
So, yeah, back over to the new Star Wars movie that's coming out. I know that by now you've probably already seen every single trailer that's come out. Do you think that with bringing in Han Solo, Chewie, Leia, and even Luke, who we haven't really seen too much of from the trailer from what we've seen, do you think that they're going to implement these characters as kind of like a stepping stone for the new ones, or do you think that they're going to be basically with them throughout the whole film, like, let's say, like the older films were?
I think they'll be with... I think most of the characters will be in the most of the films, but to a lesser extent is what we're used to seeing. I don't think they're going to be the main focal points. I think we're going to see Flynn. We're going to see Rey. I think they're going to be probably the main characters in the new series, which is fine. And I even think like characters like Leia and Han and Luke. I mean, it's taking place like 30-something years after Return of the Jedi, so they're going to be different characters than what we're used to seeing anyway. Because we change. You know, I'm not the same person who I was 20 years ago, neither are you, and 30 years ago. So, like we evolve. So I would be kind of disappointed if like Han Solo was the same kind of character as, I think I would expect to see some involvement, in Han Solo, whether good or bad.
Yeah, it was like 20 years ago. I was like 8 years old, so I
Yeah.
didn't even know much about Star Wars because I was into like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and like Power Rangers and stuff like that.
Which is funny.
So,
those are still around, huge, right? I mean, it's like my boys love Turtles, and I know Power Rangers are still on TV, which is crazy, which is awesome. And it's funny to watch, man. It hasn't changed at all either. It's the cheesy acting.
I think it's also awesome that there's like new iterations of like Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles, and I think that these new concepts are awesome and all, but I think a lot of people got thrown off about the Michael Bay Turtles like they did with the Transformers. Do you think that it was a bit over-exaggeration of the style that he does, or do you think that, maybe they were right about how he misportrayed the Turtles?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, those movies have made millions and millions of dollars, so he's doing... If you look at that standpoint, he's doing something right, because people are paying to see him. But from a nostalgic point of view, for someone who's a fan of the 80s culture, I definitely wasn't... I didn't mind Turtles as much as I thought. I thought I was going into it thinking, oh man, it's going to be really terrible, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it certainly wasn't the Turtles that you and I know growing up, and... it's a different reiteration of the same characters, but different. I mean, at one point, I think the original script, they were from outer space or some weird thing, and like a completely different backstory, which would have been really disappointing. At that point, don't even call it Turtles, And like, I don't know if you saw that trailer to that Gem movie in the holograms.
Oh yeah, I heard that. It bombed so bad that it got out of the theaters in like 2 weeks or something like that.
Oh really?
Yeah, it bombed so bad from the box office numbers.
Yeah, it was. Well, they just they take an offshoot story and they slap on because that series cartoon was really on after. I'm trying to think, it was between like He-Man and some other show that I used to watch, and so I used to watch Gem just because it was just the timing of when it was on, and I was a fan of Gem, of the cartoon, as cheesy as it may sound, but yeah, I saw that trailer. I'm like, what is this? They basically took like Hannah Montana and try to make slap a Gem sticker on it. It just didn't work.
Yeah, and they changed Synergy from being this like all-wise computer to being a electronic digital age Furby with like a little beeps and boops like R2-D2, and
oh really?
It just was not even like anything like the movie. They had some quotes from the television show like Showtime Synergy where she would like kind of jiggle her like earring, but it was just that was like about it, and they really botched the whole entire movie altogether. So another movie that is coming out is of course the new Power Rangers, and they're going to be doing a reboot on that. Now, do you think that Saban and Lionsgate are probably going to learn from Jim's mistake, or are they going to go down the same road and just pump it out for money?
I sure hope so, man. I hope so.
With that said, I don't think we went as long as I would have thought, but I think we did very well on the interview, so if you have anything else you want to finish up on, just feel free to end the interview off.
Yeah, no, I first off, man, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for the opportunity, and it was great chatting with you. And
no problem.
If people want to stay in touch, I guess Facebook is the easiest way. Gamester81, Star Wars Net 77, also Collector Vision, Games, and Game on Expo. So I appreciate the plugs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people are kind of curious, for those that have been to Game On Expo this past year, do you have a set date in stone just yet?
We actually just signed it the other day, August 5th through 7th of next year. So it's the first weekend of August. So yeah, that's going to be at the same place, the Mesa Convention Center. We're going to expand it to the Marriott. We were expecting like a little over 1,000 people, which we would have been amazed. Like, I've been like, this would have been an incredible show if we had over 1,000 people first year. I would have been happy with 500. We were doing a lot of marketing. We worked on it for a year, just promoting it, getting some good guests, and certainly Jason and my business partners, Neil and Gray, certainly were huge helps. We had a whole bunch of volunteers that helped out. So I don't take all the credit, because it was definitely a team effort. But we ended up doing over 4,000 people, a little over 4,000, and like there were parts of the point, I think if anything, any hiccups of the show was a point that it was almost too busy at some points, which is a good problem to have. No, not too busy to the point where people were like complaining, but certainly would like more space. So we're expanding it. I'm shooting for, I'd be happy with 6,000 or 7,000 this next year. That's my goal. We're going to take it to the next level. And who knows, we're going to take it year by year and see where the show goes, man. But definitely it's been a great experience, and big shout out to the guys up at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Chuck and his team up there, because they definitely gave us a lot of tips as far as, what to do and what not to do. And there's like a lot of things that you don't realize organizing a convention that you don't have to realize that just go into it,
Yeah, definitely.
Volunteers and like insurance expenses and like all the convention will charge you for power drops and for chairs and for tables and like the nickel and dime you on anywhere they can possibly get you. So
yeah, especially if people are trying to trample over others just to be able to get a good deal on a Wild Guns or a Panic Restaurant.
Right. Yeah, you have to have insurance for that in case someone, God forbid, falls over and breaks his arm, or you have to have insurance to cover that. And that's expensive when you're talking about that many people. So, but all said and done, it was a lot of fun, a great experience. I'm really excited for next year. I'm not really announcing any guests yet at this point, but we're working on some really good guests that we're talking with for next year. And I think most importantly, though, man, I don't want to drag on this too long, but
it's fine. It's your end.
People had a lot of fun, and the vendors, just feedback we got from the vendors were like, "Hey, man, I had a great show." So, to me, that's more important, man. Big picture, because that means if the vendors are happy, the guests are happy, then that means that the show will grow. Big picture, I would much rather to be that than like people be not as happy and then us make a ton of money off of in spite of all that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, because it's really good that there are people that are out there that care for a convention that they want to grow and to build a community off of the site itself. So I think it's really, really good that you're not doing it for profit whatsoever.
No, and it's the same thing with YouTube, man. I would never do it. And that's just my advice to anyone who wants to do a show is don't do it for money. If you make money on it, awesome. Nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in making money on what you're working hard on, And but having said that, like with Game On Expo, in Phoenix we have like 3 or 4 Comic-Con style shows. It's crazy. It's very saturated with every other month we have a Comic-Con style show. Phoenix Comic-Con is like 80,000 people. It's pretty big, But they started 10 years ago with less than 100 people. Just grew into this huge convention. It's like I think top 5 or 6 Comic-Con conventions in the U.S., which is awesome. But this, who knows, man? I mean, will Game On Expo ever get to that point? I don't know, but I don't like to look that far in the future. I don't have a crystal ball. But just take it year by year, and I think people, if anything, saw a need for a convention like this because, and I don't know if you've ever been to any Comic-Con shows or not. Have you ever been to a Comic-Con show? Or?
I think I've had like a few friends of mine that have went to the San Diego Comic-Con, and they are usually vendors there selling their artwork, but they know exactly how busy it is. That's
great. Yeah, it's like sardines. When you get to 120,000 point like San Diego is, it's nuts. But I love Comic-Cons. They're great. It's a geek fest. You have, it's a pop culture convention. It's not even comics anymore. It's movies, it's it's comics, it's music, it's a little everything, right? Our show's a little bit different in the sense that we're really focused on gaming, where anything from like tabletop gaming to whether it's Pokemon to any board games to arcade games to modern games to retro games. So all aspects of gaming, that's what Game On Expo is about. And that we love that hobby, and we love people who love that hobby. So that's what we're shooting for.
And that's one thing that I think a lot of people, it doesn't matter if you're listening to this or if you're posting on Twitter, that if you have a hobby, no matter if it's like Twilight that gets bashed on or if you're into some kind of like rock and roll band, that you stick to that hobby and just don't listen to like what any hater says, because that, I think, brings a lot of negativity to what people enjoy.
That's very well said, man. And I think, with the YouTube community, I've certainly gotten I've gotten my hate. I think everyone has. But, I think once you get to that point where people are starting to bash you, I think that means you've probably made it a little bit to a point, and you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. And for every one person who's negative, I get 10 people who are super positive about it, and I focus on the positive, and that's what you have to do to move forward.
And I think that is definitely something good to end off on, and I think a lot more people need to at least remain positive, no matter what a lot of people say.
Yeah, and like you said, man, if you have a hobby, whether it's if you like, I don't know, My Little Pony, and you're a guy, go for it, man. It's all you, own it. That's your hobby.
Definitely.
No one should ever knock you for who you are, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. So.
It's not a problem.
All right, cool.
All right. So, once again, I want to thank you for being on for the interview, man, and I know that I bugged you, bombarded with messages.
Good, I appreciate the follow-up, dude, because I really do, man, and it was great being on.
It's not a problem, man. Hopefully in the future, when we do like a redo of the interview, that maybe we'll get to hear some big updates from you about Game On Expo and other projects in the future.
Sounds good, brother. Thanks, man.
That's not a problem. So we're going to go ahead and switch it over to the ending plug. What isn't with me tonight and just kind of screwing up what I want to say? That's it for the episode. Thank you again, John. I know that I pestered you weeks and weeks and weeks to try to get this recording out of the way, and I know that you've been busy, but it was just still good to be able to have you on for tonight's episode, and I do thank you very much again for taking the time and patience with me, because I know that sometimes I'm not a very easy man to deal with, but that's just how things are. And again, thanks to everybody who's listening to this right now for waiting for the third episode to come out. And I know that 8-Bit Eric's interview actually got a lot more than Scott's, but if you haven't done so, please go back and listen to the other interviews and just give them a listen through, because I think that it's still very awesome that these guys take the time out of their life to basically do these interviews, because this is probably one of my favorite projects that I do here on YouTube, because I've done interviews for so long now that I forgot how fun it is to just sit down and chat and ask questions and just hear the responses, and then just get some kind of a little bit of a chit-chat type of thing going on. So, that's it for the episode, guys. I know it just seemed like I was botching a lot of my lines or what I was going to be talking about, but I thank you guys very much for putting up with my horrendous acting, or not acting, just horrendous talking. I've done voice acting before in the past, and I still cringe as to how bad of a performance I did up until 2012 or whenever the last thing that I did was. So that's it for the recording. My throat is pretty much done for tonight, and I'm gonna try to edit this episode out. But again, if you guys have any suggestions for any future episodes, please again post it down in the comments below. And if you haven't done so, please check out Life of a Game Seller, my weekly vlog series where I take you through the day in the life of a video game seller, not like VGS like Scott Squatches, but again, you already know how it is. So, thank you all very much again for watching the episode. Please stay tuned for more future Select Screen episodes. And until the next edition of Select Screen, I will see you all on the flip side. So, later.